You're listening to the Platte River Bard.
Hello, and welcome to the Platte River Bard. This is Chris Berger.
And I'm Sherry Berger.
And we are here at Bellevue Little Theatre with Chris Scott. He is the director of the upcoming play that they have here, Barefoot in the Park. It runs from June 7th to June 23rd. And we're here in the lobby of Bellevue Little Theatre talking with Chris. My friend, good to see you. It's been a while.
You too. Yeah, I think we did that show at the Playhouse, Liberty Valance, in 2016.
Was it 16? I think it was.
Yeah,
Boy, 8 years ago. Wow.
It was.
Yeah.
That's a fun show.
It was a real fun show. I think about that show a lot, actually, and like the gun spinning that I had to learn to do and stuff like that. It was fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You guys were both awesome in that production.
Oh,
I
yeah,
saw it
thanks.
several times.
It was fun.
So, when you were in it. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah.
No.
Gotta love good theater widows, man.
Exactly.
My wife is the best. So I just did Baskerville at the Playhouse.
Yes, congratulations, by the way. I was
Thanks.
so unhappy I did not get to see it. I was not able to get out to see it.
Yeah.
But I had several friends who did, and they kept talking about how much they loved it. So
Good.
congratulations.
Yeah, there's so much theater. It's and then when you're doing it,
And then that's the thing.
It's hard to
It
get to everything. I totally understand. But my wife went and saw it 4 times. I was like, you really don't have to come see me on
That's
stage
awesome.
4
No,
times.
you want to.
But she did.
You want
Isn't that
to.
cool?
She's such a lovely woman, so I feel
That's
lucky.
so
Good to
awesome.
support. I think
Yeah.
when Chris first did his very first production, I was there every night.
I think you saw Music
All
Man every
12
time.
nights.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but I had the best seats in the house
a lot of
when
Music
it was
Man.
packed
Yeah.
because I think the best seats in the house were up by the sound booth on the stairs up to the way to the sound booth.
Yeah, so they just let her
Those
sit
are
on
the
the
best
stairs.
seats in the house. I will happily sit on those stairs any day.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
We just got done talking to Kyle, who directed
Oh,
that.
yeah, Kyle Thomas. He's
Yep.
great. I love him. Yeah.
And I didn't know he directed, so
Yeah.
I'm glad to know that was a good show. And
Yeah, he
fun
did.
and
He's
everything.
done a bunch, and we actually did Beauty and the Beast at the Rose last summer together.
Oh,
It
good.
was
Cool.
a real funny Spindly LeFou, and I was Belle's dad, Maurice. It was a fun show. It was a
that's
fun show.
wonderful.
Yeah, I had a great time working with Kyle. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll do something together again.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's cool.
And now you're here directing Barefoot in the Park.
Yeah.
It's nice to see you directing. I've been seeing you directing here and there, and you've done this isn't your first one here at Bellevue, no?
Last year in their last season, I directed Agatha Christie's Spider's Web, which was a really fun show. Sort of comedy murder mystery.
Oh, yeah.
Real zany stuff. And the premise behind that is a lot. At least in my mind, sort of the premise behind Barefoot in the Park, or just about any comedy that I look at, you know what I mean? It's always grounded in real emotion, but I'm always looking for sort of heightened stuff, right? Like,
Sure.
And that's, I think that's something that a tough thing we ask from actors is to be realistic, and be grounded in reality. But I also want it to be dramatic, right? Like when you're arguing with someone,
Yeah.
I want it to be sort of that next level, right? Like, so, and then also, remember to breathe and walk and face down stage and
That's right.
all those other technical things.
Remember
So-
your lines, don't bump into the furniture, and
yeah,
you'll be fine.
Yeah, right. And so I think, with Neo Comedy, I read a lot of reviews about this show, not only from the original Broadway show that ran for 4 years in the 60s, also like the movie and the 2006 revival that
Yes.
sort of got panned a lot.
That's what I understood. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were reading. It didn't get very.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Robert Redford originated the role.
Yeah. And he was in the movie and on Broadway too.
On Broadway, yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah.
was surprised to see that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. He, I have not watched the movie. I've
It's
never
been
seen
forever.
the movie.
Oh, I've seen it, but it's been forever.
And so I'm definitely waiting to watch it until after I'm done directing the show. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. I just, even if subconsciously some of those ideas sneak in, I just don't even want to.
Nope.
Don't even want to have the chance for it. Right?
Oh, I've always
So-
been like that. Our high school director used to go, especially with the musical. She goes, "Okay, well, let's watch the musical," and I was like, "No," and I would always
Yeah.
try to find a way to skip it.
Right.
And not go because I'm like, no, I haven't seen it. Don't make me watch it.
Sure. And I think that there are some things that you have to do, right? People expect to see certain things, and so at some point,
sure,
you have to give people what they expect, right? Like
some kind of tradition. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of something, but I'm not going to do. Let me trying to think of a good thing. Like let's think about Wicked, right? You know what I mean? Like you're not going to do Wicked with the witch sort of automatically being popular or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's just some things that people expect to see that you have to give them, but that's different than whole scale copying someone else's ideas.
Yes,
right?
Which is what I'm always afraid of when I see other stuff and other people, especially other people doing roles. It's like, no, especially if it's really good.
Right.
Then you can't get that out of your head. And it's like, oh, no.
Right.
How do I? That's the only way now I can see to do that role.
Yeah. And there's,
darn it.
There's a difference between doing like an homage to something.
Yes.
Like that. But, that's, I don't know. Anyway.
That's hard. Yeah.
So with Neil Simon, I think part of the reason that 2006 production got panned a lot is that, at least from what I've read, of course I didn't see it, but it really seems like the director was really focused more on like the comedy and the external, and the audiences didn't really see like that grounded, real emotion coming through. You know what I mean? And that's tough. Like there is a lot of dated language in Barefoot in the Park. The big line that Mom says that Corey has to give up a piece of herself to make Paul happy. It is not explicitly stated that Paul also has to do the same thing to make Corey happy.
Yeah.
Sure.
But he does, right? Like
yes.
He does it in maybe not a smart way, sort of a man-child kind of a way, but he does he does give up that sort of conservative, stuck-up nature. He does go get drunk and walk barefoot in the park. You know what I mean? Like he does.
Yes.
So they both end up giving parts of themselves, right? But especially with Neil Simon, if he, at least in my opinion, if you don't focus on the real emotions going on underneath, then it is just going to be like a soulless comedy machine. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah, you have to play it real because that's the strength of his stuff because you can.
Yeah, right. And that's a lot of the criticisms of Neil Simon come from that idea that he sacrifices character to get the punchline, right? And sometimes that happens, it's a comedy. Sometimes that has to happen. But I think in Barefoot in the Park, at least, really a lot of the humor comes from the characters' emotions and
just
who
the
they are
characters
anyway,
themselves.
right?
Yeah,
Like
just
it's
them themselves.
all the humor is very character driven, and there's some physical comedy shtick, and there's some like witty one-liners and stuff like that, but it's all, and for me, for Neil Simon to be really successful, it's all got to be grounded in that, what is the real emotional conflict, and what are these characters really wanting and really going for, and how does that schism create conflict, right? And that's where the humor comes from in the show.
And that's where the comedy is, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's the conflict between the characters that creates it.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the premise of the show, for anyone who doesn't know, is they're in a New York apartment.
Yeah.
That's kind of run down.
It's a run down
it's a
brownstone.
newlywed couple.
Yeah. So Paul and Corey Bratter have just gotten married like 6 days ago at the beginning of the play, and they have rented their first apartment together, and it's on the 5th floor of an old brownstone, and it's sort of a quirky apartment where like the heat doesn't work right, and there's a big skylight that has a hole in it. And it's got weird angles and stuff like that. And when we, at the beginning of the play, we see Corey fretting about the furniture getting there and all that kind of stuff, right? And Mom comes to visit when the apartment is not ready, and so it's about this newlywed couple who's moving into their first apartment, and really the whole sort of through line of the play is them managing their relationship, right? Learning how to live with each other, learning how to, manage their differences and navigate, sharing your life full time with someone, right? Mm-hmm. and then of course there's a whole lot of other stuff in it too when you bring in the mother character Ethel and the next door neighbor Victor and like sort of their budding relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's but it's the main conflict is about the idea. Sort of the clash between the personalities of Corey and Paul.
Yeah.
And I think that, I got married almost 4 years ago now in October 2020. And so
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a weird COVID wedding, but
You say October 2020. Yeah.
We can talk a lot more about that, but and so there's a lot of stuff in the play that speaks to me, right? Because even though it's a very different situation 60 years later, and
Sure.
I'm definitely not Paul, my wife is definitely not Corey, like
Right.
still that idea of having to actually live with someone full time and manage what their personality is really like and what their flaws really are. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this is certainly a heightened situation of it, and
Right.
They sort of jump to extremes really quickly, but at the same time, the idea is that the characters are in their 20s, are still pretty young and naive, and emotions are high, and so. So the whole conceit is that they are moving into this apartment and it causes stress in their relationship. And then Corey tries to hook her mother up with their weird upstairs neighbor. And Paul is not a fan of that. So they fight and they argue, and it turns into them like Corey saying, well, I want a divorce. And so it's really in like, and that all happens in the second act, right?
Okay.
And then in the third act, we get one reviewer called it something like the desolation of quiet or something, right? And it's this really remarkable difference between when they're the first act when they're in love with each other, the second act when they're still fighting with each other, and then in the beginning of the third act. It's just nothing. They don't want to look at each other. They don't want to talk to each other. It's just this really uncomfortable, stilted thing, and so I think Simon does a great job of really showing how these kinds of fights or disagreements or whatever, these kinds of moments in our lives, how they morph and change, and there's a million different kinds of emotions going on throughout the whole thing. And I just think that, of course, at the end we get like a nice resolution because it's a classic comedy. And
For sure.
So,
It has to end nice.
Yeah. Spoiler, the young lovers get back together. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like,
And then
course.
they spend the next 10 to 20 years figuring out everything that they couldn't figure
yeah,
out.
yeah,
Six
right.
months or whatever.
Yeah, for
It is
sure.
a romantic
Because
comedy,
it takes
basically.
time. I mean, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff takes time.
Yeah,
to get used to.
definitely.
Yeah.
And so even though it's 60 years old, I think that there's just a lot of sort of, I don't even know the word, like prototypical or
It's classic relationship stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that stuff never changes.
Right,
I mean,
right.
it's never changed. I
Yeah.
mean, people getting together and trying to live together, no matter
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah,
That's
right.
eternal, man.
and and then
It's just the human experience.
in the mother in the character of the mother and Victor, Simon explores other themes like loneliness and getting older.
Yes.
And navigating what happens when the partner you've lived with for your whole life is no longer there.
gone
Right.
And
now.
how do
Yes.
you find a new identity that's just you? You know what I mean? So
That's huge.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
many people go through that.
yeah, and so on the surface, Ethel, the mother, she just seems like sort of a conservative mother who throws out a bunch of like sort of subtle digs at her daughter's tastes and how she decorates and stuff like that, right? And while that's true, there's also so much there to plumb into with that character as far as what's going on in her inner life and her emotional stuff. And same with like the weird neighbor Victor, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
how how does Victor get to where he is at, right? And so this is a lot of like work that actors and directors do, to really give that character a full story. But I mean, that's got to be there, right? Because otherwise, Victor is just this weird neighbor, and like, why are you letting him in your house? And like,
exactly.
especially in 2020, after the Me Too movement and stuff like that. Like, the guy playing Victor is a guy named Jack. And Jack Zerby teaches at UNO. He's a really awesome actor, and he's been great to work with. We've had a lot of talks about how to make Victor not just a weird, creepy old guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's got to be charming. We've got to believe that people are going to like him. So, like, what else is there?
Right. Why is he here? Yeah. If he's this weird. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, the man whose one of his first lines is, I like to make pretty women uncomfortable at least once a month just to keep my ego up. You know what I mean? Like, how
do you make that a guy that everybody wants to be around?
Yeah. Or at least that Corey trusts enough, to hook up her mom with.
Exactly.
Right? So,
right.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of emotional work that you can do with these characters that I think makes the play supersede just the one-liners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it's still funny. We've worked to put a lot of humor into it. There is still a lot of good writing. Some of the jokes are like a little old, like there's a joke about What's My Line, which is an old TV show, right?
Sure.
There's a joke about Daryl Zanuck, and I'm sure that I don't even know many people my age know who Daryl Zanuck is. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So,
okay.
Right. But, but in the same sentence, Daryl Zanuck is mentioned with the King of Sweden and like someone else that we can know is, popular and rich, right? So,
sure.
It's got some really funny jokes in it, but really to make those sing, it's really just, you've got to have the heart there. You know what I mean? And for me, that's what Neil Simon is. In order to do Neil Simon right, you've really got to focus on the emotions at hand. The comedy is there. It'll play. You don't really have to worry about, is this word funnier or do we take 2 beats to say it? You know? Of course, we do some of that stuff. We try and work with the jokes to make them as funny as we can. But when it comes down to it,
it's Neil Simon.
What's going to really grasp the audience, what's really going to hold them for the whole show is not just the jokes, but like, them identifying with the feelings and the emotions of those characters and seeing like, okay, even though it's a little maybe jumping to extremes that you automatically want a divorce after one big fight, I can see why that's happening, like I can, and there's just been a lot of time where I've been working on this show where I've been reflecting on it. I've been like, this is not what I would do in this situation, but given, a reality that's just like one click different, I can definitely see me, going out the handle like that.
Right.
Or I can definitely see me throwing that barb at my wife in a fight.
Yeah.
Intending to be hurtful. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I'm, maybe I just admitted something about myself that makes me a bad person. But, I think we all do stuff in fights that we regret. And that's part of this too, right? Like, how do you heal after a fight if that relationship is still that important to you?
Yes.
How do you come back together, right? And we don't necessarily get to see how they work to come back together, but we do get to see that they at least try and start that process, right? Like Ethel says, they both sort of give up a piece of themselves and compromise so that they can be with that person that is important to them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Speaking of your cast, how do you like this cast?
Man, they are a bunch of killers. They're really fantastic. I feel so lucky. Everyone in my cast has been doing theater for a long time, and most of them have been paid around the city and, in other cities for their work for acting and directing. Shar, who plays Ethel, works in the costume shop at UNO. She's a great costumer.
Cool.
I saw her in Who's Virginia Woolf or Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf at OCP.
Okay.
In 2014 or something like that.
Okay.
And I just will never get that performance out of my head. She's excellent. Katie, who plays Corey, She does a bunch of stuff at the Rose and is also currently directing a play while she's acting. So I feel real blessed that these people have like volunteered their time to do this show, because they're all so wonderful. They're great actors. They come with new ideas every night. They listen to notes. They're really collaborative, and I think they're gonna put on a really great performance.
That's awesome.
That's great.
You get some good veteran actors for a Neil Simon show.
Yeah, definitely.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it takes that right, because it is a simple. To say simple is not right, but you know what I mean. There's not a lot of complex conceits. Mm-hmm. It's not it's not that. How do I say this? Of course, there's subtext in it, and the characters have a bunch of different emotions. But it's simple. You know what I mean? It's a simple story, and so it's really about having people who have the skill enough to play that simple story, but to do it in a way that is intriguing and fulfilling. You know what I mean? And each one of the actors, they really have just dug into the characters. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I think we're all really honest about just sort of the technical aspects of comedy, and you've got to nail this joke exactly at this time because that's what makes it funny, or make sure you're not dropping the word at the end of this sentence. You know what I mean? And so they're all like you said, I think the right word is like veteran actors. They've all done a bunch of stuff, and I just feel really great that they all auditioned for me and then agreed to do my show. And most of them, the other great thing about it is that actually all of them I have worked with before. And
nice.
Yeah, so that's really great for me to be able to, and let's see, most of them I even have worked with a few times. And so, I think that makes it a little easier when you already have those relationships. You sort of have an idea of how people work together. Most of them have not worked with me as a director before. We've been in castmates together. Yeah. But, that still gives me an idea of who they are as an actor and
how they like to work.
Yeah, definitely.
So this seems like it would be not just a great date play for couples, but also maybe even a great date for girls to get together with their friends and come as a girls group.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It's a fun romantic comedy for sure.
Yeah.
That's definitely what it is, right?
Yeah.
There's some funny jokes. There's some conflict. There's a cute, sweet resolution. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think that's definitely the right thing. It would be a great date night play. It would be a great girls' night play, or hell, even I'm gonna make all my dude bow friends come and see it too, because there's lessons in this play that maybe they need to learn.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean?
And it's Neil Simon, so it's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of appeal for different types of people to want to see this play.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what I think that's what it comes down to. Plays like this are sort of old, and they sort of some of the jokes are old, and there were a few off-color jokes that we're not going to use in the play.
Fair enough.
Right? And, there are just things like that I think you have to do with a show like this to make it digestible for modern audiences.
Yeah.
Right?
But when it comes down to it, the themes in the show and the conflict between the characters, are, like we've been talking about, all really identifiable.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a lot in this show for people to connect with. And whether you're 80 and remember seeing the movie when it first came out, or you're 25 and maybe did Rumors when you were in high school or something like that, I think that there's something in this show that you can connect with. There's something in this show that you can laugh at. And hopefully, by the end of the show, you feel a little uplifted by what you've seen.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, this is your second show, you said, at Bellevue Little Theatre.
Yeah.
How do you like being here?
It's good. It's good. I think every theater sort of has its quirks and its different ways of working, but the board at BLT is pretty supportive.
It's nice to hear.
they're really good at helping find, weird, interesting props. Of course, this is set in the 60s, so we've been looking for a lot of period furniture.
Yes.
So, some of the stuff on stage belongs to some of the board members, right?
Very cool.
One of the board members is doing my light design. You know what I mean?
There you
go. There's a lot here at Bellevue Little Theater. They have a really dedicated board, and the theater's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
They have some newer board members that I think are breathing some fresh life into it, and
Cool.
I really think that working at Bellevue Little Theater is nice. They have a pretty nice facility. The stage is great. They have a nice big green room, and
Sweet.
I think that I've definitely been in community theaters that are not as well kept as this, are not as well supported, and I would not have come back after Spider's Web if I did not. Even though I like making a little bit of money for directing, I would not have done it if I had not had a really positive experience the first time. Yeah. It's been great, and I definitely look forward to doing more stuff with them in the future.
That's cool.
That's great.
That's cool.
And just to make a mention, we were talking earlier, you have a degree in theater criticism, an MA.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
have a bachelor's degree in theater arts,
Yeah.
and then a master's in theater with a focus in theater criticism and directing. So I spent, in my early 20s, I spent a lot of time thinking about plays and thinking I knew the right stuff about plays. You know what I mean? And sometimes I still think that. And I think my background in criticism really helps me, has been worlds of help for my work as an actor and a director.
Really
being able to do script analysis and dig into plays and, decide what's really important in, the thousands of words in a play.
Yes.
Picking out what's really important and what we want to showcase and, what the through line is.
That's a really interesting, because I hadn't heard of that degree before. So that's
I haven't heard of
really
the degree.
interesting
Yeah.
degree.
Yeah.
to
It
get
makes
in.
sense that is a thing. Of course, script analysis is so big.
Yeah.
And literary criticism is so huge.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's I think often referred to as like HLC, history, literature, and criticism.
Okay.
But yeah, if you think of the PhD in theater, now they have a bunch of different kinds, right? But mostly that's going to be academic, right? So a lot of those people who are teaching theater history or literature and criticism or even script analysis, I think they probably have those more academic based PhDs, even though I also think most people in theater, even if they're more academicians, also have to be practitioners, right? Like
right.
I don't know many people who've gotten into theater just because they like watching it and talking about it, right? Most people I know want to work and create theater in some way. And when it came down to it, that's what really interests me about theater, and so the criticism part sort of fell by the wayside a little bit. But yeah, I did spend some money getting a master's degree in that, and at some point in my life,
That's got to be really valuable, though.
Yeah,
especially
That's really
as a
interesting.
director.
yeah, definitely. At some point in my life, I really thought that I was going to go get a PhD in like history and criticism and go be a professor. And I sort of have taken a different route than that, but. I still, I learned a lot in that master's degree, and I feel fortunate to have been able to do it. And you're right, it has given me a load of skills that I use all the time. So,
And I wonder, does it help like for feedback for new plays? Is that kind of what you were thinking as well? Like theater criticism, does that mean that you're giving feedback to playwriters maybe in that sense? Is that something that is used by that? Or maybe that's a stupid question.
Yeah, no. So I think that's part of it. I think a lot of people who do like criticism and history stuff also engage in being dramaturgs. So, and that a lot of times that's involved in working with new plays. When I think about theater criticism, certainly some part of it is like, oh, you read that review of this new play or whatever, right?
Right.
That's certainly part of it.
Sure.
I think, like I said, there's also a big swath of it that's just more academic in nature. If you think about, an English professor reading a novel or whatever and writing a paper about the themes in that novel, I think that people who engage in theater criticism also do some of that stuff too.
Right.
Right.
It's like that kind of
That's
deal.
really interesting.
Yeah.
I just didn't know about that degree. That's super
Yeah,
interesting.
that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and just to mention, I know we've talked about it. Your prop master and set dresser is Nora Robertson.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Nora,
your
yay.
Light designer is Joey Lawrence.
Joey Lawrence, yep.
And then sound designer, Joe, I know he's Emily's husband, sorry.
Yep.
Joe Muricki.
McCrisky?
I can never say it right.
Ooh, I think it's McCrisky.
I can edit
I've
this.
only heard it said a
I
few
can
times.
edit it.
No,
So it
please
sounds
don't edit
right.
it. Please don't edit it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
I know both of them very well.
Right. I've known Joe and Emily for a while.
She was my very first Mrs. Cratchit. So
Oh yeah, right.
her
right,
last
right.
year was my first year.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's McCrisky or McCreechy. McCrisky. I'm going to say McCrisky.
I think
Okay.
It's McCrisky, I think you're
I think
Is
it's.
it
I'm
right?
going to say McCrisky.
Yes.
I just always,
Polish.
I always see it. I never have to say it.
Yes.
I'll see Joe on next week for our paper text.
Wait,
So I'll be like, dude, you got to tell me. You just got to tell me. You're right.
Definitively.
That's right.
Just say it slowly.
Yeah. They're all great. Caitlin is my stage manager. She's sort of a new stage manager,
Caitlin
but
Mayer?
yeah, Caitlin Maher. It's been great working with her. Chris Ebke, that's a pretty familiar name around these parts. He
designer.
built my set last year for
Cool.
Spider's Web and did a great job, and so I'm happy he was able to do it this year again.
Set looks great. We got to see some of it as
Yes.
it's being made.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
it looks
great.
great.
Yeah, it's a real interesting set, and it's sort of a challenge, right? Because in the first act, it's a bare stage, and then the way that we're doing it is we're splitting the play sort of directly in half, like in the middle of the second act. But between Act 1 and Act 2, all of the furniture in the apartment has to come on stage, and since we're not doing intermission there, we have had to decide how are we going to
How
bring.
are you going to do it?
Yeah,
You roll it in somehow.
Yeah, so we ended up hinging one of the set walls so that a whole wall of the set opens up.
Oh, nice.
So that instead of having to try and cram everything through one of the doors, we have a whole big space that everything can come out. And so we're going to spend a great deal of time in tech really choreographing that so that hopefully that set change happens in a minute. You
How
know what I
fun.
mean?
That would be,
Yeah, and it's going to be. Yeah, there are some directors that don't want cast members on stage before they're seen, or don't want them on stage in costume. I don't care about any of that. We all know it's a play. We all know it's fake. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Audiences. One of the things about theater is the audiences willingly suspend their disbelief.
Yes, they do.
To allow the reality of the play to be on stage, right?
Yeah.
And so it's going to be all hands on deck.
Moving
Even
stuff
Paul and Corey are going to help move. Well, maybe not because they got to do costume changes. But Victor and Ethel, they're going to be up there in their costumes,
Supporting characters, helping out.
just helping do the set change, and that's fine. That stuff just needs to happen.
That's okay.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's
okay.
great. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
excited for you.
yeah, thanks. Yeah,
And this will be a great play.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, and we are. So next week we'll start adding some more tech elements, and then our tech week is actually whatever starts June 1st or whatever that Sunday is.
Yeah. It's either the
Second,
first
I
or
think.
second, I think.
Yeah, and then that's when we'll of course that's when we'll really add all the lights. Actually,
Ramp
Joey's
up
in there
and-
hanging lights right now.
Yeah.
And but that's of course when we'll add all the tech elements and the costumes. Our costumer is named Elizabeth. And I think she's sort of a recent graduate of Creighton. Actually,
Elizabeth Peller.
Yep,
Cool.
yep. So Laura, who is the costume designer at Creighton, hooked me up with Elizabeth, and so it's been great having her as well. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
I think it's all going to come together. Hopefully, to be. The thing with the tech here again, it's sort of simple stuff, but it's got to be done really well, or else it just looks like sort of clunky, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like how do you take just a general illumination light plot, but still make it effective and meaningful? And how do you add to the show with it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not just like, okay, we can see the actors, which is really important. And,
sure.
I'm the kind of director that always argues with lighting designers that things need to be a little bit brighter.
Fair enough.
Can we bump those lights up a little bit?
Can we see the actors a little better?
Yeah, right. But, like I want them to be able to get their artistry through too.
Sure.
So, really, really using the lights and the sound and the costumes to reinforce everything else that we're doing with the play is, so hopefully that all is coming through, right? Yeah. And it's not just, here's this old apartment. Okay, I get it. But, here's this old apartment. Oh, look at those weird angles. Oh, I can understand why this is, creating some havoc in this marriage because it's snowing through this hole in the skylight.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So,
yes.
Yeah, so they're all really important collaboration partners too in this whole process.
That's
awesome.
Great. I love it. This is the week that everything really comes together. And
Yep.
Yeah.
It's kind of where the excitement starts.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm
the
excited
theater
for
magic
you.
kicks
yeah,
in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get a little bit of butterfly in the tummy and then for a little while and then you're good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly.
Yeah, we used to call it Pirate Week when I was in college. I don't know why, but
Interesting.
we would all wear. So I was a shop assistant, right? And so of course in that last week, it's when you're all like scrambling to get the set put up, and especially when it's student-led stuff, you're in there at midnight working away, and so we just to have fun called it Pirate Week, and we all wore bandanas around, and
cool,
but it's that's the kind of stuff about theater that I both love and hate. You know what I mean? Like spending 18 hours in a theater in one day is great, but also really taxing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yes.
And so that's I don't know. There's a lot there that I could talk about like staying healthy while giving all you can to a show.
Yes.
But,
Right.
Anyway, I like the idea of Pirate Week, right?
I like that.
That's what I always think about. Whenever I think about Tech Week, I always just
Pirate
wanna
Week.
call it Pirate Week.
I love it.
I like it.
We like pirates.
We gotta start that.
Yeah.
New tradition is Pirate Week.
Absolutely.
I enjoy that.
I like that. Yeah, it's just something fun. Wear eye patches and. Your lighting designer is going to be in a bandana carrying a plastic sword around. You know what I mean?
I'm there. I'm all about it. I'm all about it.
So you open June 3rd and you go until the 23rd. How many shows are there?
So June 7th.
June 7th.
Yep,
Okay.
yep,
June 7th through the 23rd.
3 weekends, 9 shows. Friday, Saturday evening.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And then Sunday matinee. Evening shows start at 7:30 and Sunday matinees start at 2.
2.
Yep.
And I think that they can call the box office to get tickets, or there's the website, theblt.org or blt.simpletix.com. There. How's that for?
That's wonderful. I got it all here.
I know.
In case you didn't have
I'm
it.
looking at the poster right behind you and reading it off the
works.
poster.
That's
It works.
awesome.
Those kinds of details do not stay in my head
No,
at
okay.
all.
Me neither.
That's
Ever.
all right.
Me
That's what
neither.
I'm here for.
That's right.
I try to keep track of those
That's
things.
good. That's good.
Well, we really appreciate your time
Yes,
today
thanks, man.
and to talk about this. And I think this is going to be a fun production. And I think you've done a great job.
Oh, thanks. Well, thanks so much for having me and helping spread the
always.
word. And
Oh, yeah.
just in general, this podcast I think is great for Omaha and the surrounding area,
you.
and
Thanks,
really helping people get their messages out and get some exposure. It's really awesome.
Thank you. We are
Thank
happy
you.
to do it.
Yes.
Good.
All right.
Great.
All right. Break all the legs.
Thanks.
Neil Simon's Barefoot in the Park opens June 7th and runs until June 23rd. Shows are Friday and Saturday evenings at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday shows are at 2 p.m. Tickets can be purchased at theblt.org. Thank you for listening and supporting the arts in the Platte River area and beyond. Please subscribe to our podcast so you are sure to catch all of our future episodes and join us on social media. See you next time on the Platte River Bard.